I see hope. I see hope in the fact that this political party is rethinking its values. It's rethinking where it is. It's inviting people like me to challenge your ideas and to introduce maybe some new ones. I see hope in the Tea Party movement, which is rebelling against the growth of government and the growth of intervention in our lives and the obvious limitations being placed on each one of our liberties. But there's still a long way to go. What we need to do is recapture the spirit, the idea of individual rights. What we need to recapture is the idea of freedom and of liberty. What we need to do is recapture what capitalism is really about and what capitalism means. And don't tell me capitalism failed. What caused this financial crisis is the Federal Reserve and Freddie and Fannie and community reinvestment. Dozens of regulations placed on the mortgage business, on the housing business, on the banking business. What failed is the regulatory state. That's what failed. What failed is the mixed economy, not capitalism. So what we really need to rediscover is capitalism. We need to embrace freedom. We need to embrace liberty. We need to embrace free markets. You know, our founding fathers were incredibly courageous people who embraced the concept in a very religious era, in the 18th century, embraced the concept of separation of church and state, which I think is a crucial concept for American liberty. They understood the relationship of separating the state from religion to liberty. And they did it in an era where that was not popular, where that was really unusual. I think we need to reassert that concept. But I would like to add another separation to that. I don't just believe in separation of church and state. I believe in separation of state and economy, which is as revolutionary today as the separation of church and state was in the 18th century. I believe the government has no role in our business life. I believe the government has no role in dictating what products we should sell, how we should sell them, how we should advertise them, what interest rates we should pay on our mortgages. The government needs to get out of those businesses. We need to be advocating for cutting government, not tinkering, not tweaking, not changing here and there, not making it a little bit, everybody talked about the era of big government is over, remember that? Because government was growing at a lower rate than inflation. Well, big deal. It's 10 times larger as a percent of GDP today than it was 100 years ago, and this was still the greatest nation in history 100 years ago. We could shrink it 80%, and we would thrive. We would thrive. Imagine all that tax money returned to you. Imagine all those limitations of business, what that would do to the entrepreneurial spirit of this country. This country has more CEOs than any other country in the world. Because this country is an entrepreneurial country where people are pursuing their ideals, their dreams, their rights, their happiness. Imagine if we got government out of that and left the individual alone to pursue those ideas. Imagine the kind of prosperity, the kind of happiness that we could generate in this country. So we need to advocate for cutting taxes, for cutting spending, for cutting and eliminating regulation, not deregulation, not playing the game of we have these regulations here, now we deregulated and they're this big something. But it was deregulation, right? We need to eliminate regulation. Again, freeing up the entrepreneurial spirit of this country. We need to separate state from economics. And let me just tell the businessmen in the audience, you're constantly made to feel guilty for the wealth that you have created. I tell you, you should be proud of that wealth. This is a country that invented the concept of making money. Because before America existed, people took money. In America, we create wealth. We make money. And how do we do that? We do it by trading value for value where everybody benefits. Win-win. So you should be proud of the businesses that you created, the products that you sell, the customers that you have. And you should be proud of the fact that you took responsibility for your own life, for feeding yourself, not becoming dependent on the state, for feeding your family, for taking care of your family, and for making the most of your life. Businessmen are the heroes of American society, and we need to treat them like such. One should never accept guilt for one's virtues. And making money, creating wealth is a virtue, not a vice. It's a virtue. And if you as Republicans stood up and defended businessmen, not apologetically, not because somehow society is better off if we have businessmen, but because they are moral heroes. And if you've read Atlas Shrugged, you know Ayn Rand's view of businessmen, the only novel in history to present businessmen as heroes. Now, some of you I know are going to think that I'm an extremist. And I am. When it comes to liberty, when it comes to individual rights, when it comes to capitalism, I am a proud extremist. Let me remind you what a great Republican once said, and I'm paraphrasing Barry Goldwater when he said that extremism in the cause of liberty is a virtue, not a vice. Let me remind you of some other extremists, the founders of this country. These were men who stood up when it counted. And here we are in Richmond, not far from a very famous place where a very famous speech was given, where Patrick Henry declared, "Give me liberty or give me death." He didn't say, just give me a little bit of liberty. He didn't say, if only you could lower my taxes just a little bit, you know, the stamp tax or the tea tax. He didn't say, I want the king in my business some of the time, but the rest of the time leave me free. He said, and he meant it, give me liberty, freedom, or I am willing to fight for it to the death. And he was joined by our founding fathers who took on the mightiest military empire known to man to that point. And they took on the British Empire. And they put their lives, their property, and their honor on the line. And they did it because they believed that Americans have an inalienable right to their own life, an inalienable right to their own liberty, to their own property, and an inalienable right to pursue their own happiness. They were uncompromising about that notion. And if they had compromised, and by the way, when they did compromise with regard to slavery, 600,000 Americans died in order to correct that compromise. But putting that aside, they were uncompromising. They stuck to it, and they fought to it, and they put their lives at stake for it. Can we ask any less of ourselves? So I ask you to commit the Republican Party to a new path. Maybe an old path, but a new path for now. I ask you to commit yourself to those individual rights. I ask you to commit yourself to liberty, to commit yourself to capitalism, to commit yourself to freedom. Join me in an uncompromising, unwavering defense of the principles on which this country was founded. Thank you all.